Well, guys, welcome back to VUDivulged. I'm IG Chambers, and for this, you kind of recognize me from last year if you watched any of our videos, but you can clearly see we've got some new faces and I'd like to introduce them.
Hi, I'm Ansley Robinson. I am a first-year legal studies major.
I'm Madison Sutton. I'm a second-year legal studies major.
And kind of for this first episode, starting out the year, we will be doing mainly, for at least this one, current events. And Madison, I believe that you'd be covering our first one.
So, a little overview of the episode. We're going to be covering the India's Kolkata hospital murder, the identification of long unidentified bodies, the upcoming execution in Indiana, and then the YMCA in Vincennes, Indiana is being revitalized. So this is just a warning that we will be covering some sensitive topics. We will be covering topics that involve murder, assault, rape, etc. So if that's not topics that you want to hear about, you can skip to the end and hear about the drought and the revitalization of the YMCA, or you can just not watch this episode, but this is your warning that we will be covering those topics. So Ansley will be introducing our first topic.
So the India Kolkata hospital murders. On August 9th, Momita Demnath is a 31-year-old female trainee doctor, and she was raped and murdered in the R.G. Carr Medical College and Hospital in Kolkata, West Bengal, India. Demnath she retired to go to sleep in the seminar hall after a long shift before the murder. In the hospital that she was working at, the hospital stated there are no specific bathrooms designated or restrooms for these women, so if a doctor wanted to rest, she could not go to a designated room for it, so she was left to go to a seminar hall to get some rest. And she was found, her semi-nude body was bearing several injuries found in the morning, and the highlighted dangers posed on female doctors and the subpar of security in the state-run hospital as far as the 70s.
I don't know if they bring this up, that you can see it, but how did this, like this is a hospital. I imagine there's people going in and out constantly. Did no one, ever find it, ever hear anything? Security low there? Security guards at all?
Yeah, no, I'm not seeing anything about that. She retired to go to sleep and somebody found her just in that seminar hall, just battered, bruised.
But they did find a suspect.
Yes.
After the initial investigation and examination of the CCTV cameras that were installed in the hospital premises, they arrested a civic volunteer identified as Sanjay Roy, who admitted to the crime.
Yeah. The police alleged that there were 0 background checks conducted on the volunteer, which led to a dangerous person being allowed in the hospital around all of these women that had nothing to back them up.
You also said that this isn't the first time this happened. Is this in this hospital, or just in general for female doctors in India?
No, that was just in general for the female doctors. This has led to protests. Some protests have turned violent with the police involved. Student-led. A student-led protest dubbed the Nabana Abahan, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, had left the police law charges, shells used, water cannons, pellet stones, and the lathi charge, a forceful technique used by the Indian police to break up a crowd, an Indian expressed.
And not only the protests like those, Devnath's death led to thousands of doctors across the country suspending non-emergency medical services, and 23 people have died as doctors are on strike protesting the rape and murder of the postgraduate medic at Kolkata's R.G. Carr Medical College and Hospital.
Just kind of picking up what's going down, the government has to do something, so has the government, winning about a process, about fixing this, about changing things, because, if all your doctors go on strike, that's good for no one.
Yeah, no. West Bengal government is now passing an anti-rape bill that will enforce harsher punishments for the convicted case of rape. So that's where that's going with the government in Bengal.
Have things kind of started settling down after they kind of passed that bill? I imagine so. I mean,
Yeah, you
That's-
would think so.
I mean,
This
that-
still is a pretty recent event,
Mhm.
so it's still kind of ongoing. I'm sure we'll see the effects of that later in time.
I mean, hopefully so.
Yeah.
I mean, no one wants to experience that or have a loved one experience such a thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I
And
mean,
the women are definitely feeling it because a student at the college and hospital told the Indian Express that there were around 160 junior women doctors living on the campus before the incident, but now there are only 17 women that are left at the hospital now. So they are taking a stance on it.
I mean, it's a sad thing to hear, but obviously here there's change coming, so we can at least respect that and something's being done. I mean, I really don't got much more for that. I thought you guys were pretty straightforward on that. I
that's
mean,
pretty straightforward. case.
anything else you guys
Very
may
sad.
know? I mean, of course, yes.
Yeah, there's not much information about it as it was pretty recent, but I'm sure if you want to know more information, there will be more to come.
I believe that we have another one, like a homicide victim.
We have
Yes.
we have a segment about two long unidentified bodies that have been recently identified. The first one is a man was found in a U.S. cave and was identified after 47 years.
Gee.
This is the case of Nicholas Paul Grubb. So, a body was originally found in a Pennsylvania cave in 1977. The body was found frozen in a cave just below the Pinnacle in Albany Township, a hiking area 75 miles northwest of Philadelphia. It was discovered by two hikers who ducked inside the cave to escape the weather, and the body was called the Pinnacle Man, a reference to the Appalachian mountain peak near where his body was found. And this was 47 years ago in 1977, and they just now recently discovered who it was. So that family got peace. It was determined that the body was of 27-year-old Nicholas Paul Grubb from Fort Washington, Pennsylvania. They couldn't initially identify the body from appearance, belongings, clothing, or dental information. Fingerprints were collected, but they misplaced them. And then they found him, and that led to this discovery of the man's identity. They sent the fingerprints to the National Missing and Unidentified Person System, where an FBI agent identified the Pinnacle Man 47 years later. It was determined that the death was from drug overdose, and this case has been briefly revisited in August of 2019 when dental records linked him to a missing person case in Florida and Illinois, but we don't know much more about that. But yeah, that is the first identified body that was long unidentified, of Nicholas Paul Grubb. Any thoughts, comments?
I mean, I'll be honest, I've not really paid attention too much to like DNA sample and how to track people with that, but it took over 40 years for that. Like, what year was this body found originally?
1977, and they lost his fingerprints originally, and then
Okay.
they found them, and that's what led to his discovery.
Okay,
so
that
recently.
makes more sense. 'Cause I know we had that kind of like technology do all that, like not as far back, but
Mhm.
between those years we had that. So I was just curious, like they just never come back to it, but no, they lost it. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. I mean,
I would like to know more about the circumstances of his death. Why was he in a cave? But I'm not sure if we'll be able to find that out.
Yeah.
It was ruled a drug overdose, so I'm not going to speculate on that. But
Yeah.
it's very interesting how long it can take to identify somebody.
Yeah.
Which leads us to the next long unidentified body, that of Michael Benjamin Davis. He was identified 31 years after human remains were found by children in an Indiana field. So we're getting closer to our roots here. So human remains were discovered 31 years ago south of Indianapolis, now identified as a man from South Carolina. So in 1993, children found the remains in a field near Interstate 65 in what is now a golf course. in Greenwood, Indiana. The remains were taken to the University of North Texas, where it was determined that the individual was a male under 30 years old who stood between 4'10" and 5'4". And decades later, DNA testing and genealogy work helped scientists to determine the identity of the remains. With the help of Greenwood Police Department, the University of Indianapolis, and the Othram Forensic DNA Testing Laboratory. DNA testing can cost up to $10,000 per sample, and a podcast company, AudioChuck, covered the cost of this specific case, so that was very nice of them. It helped the police officers and FBI agents to locate family members. They tracked down potential family members who reported losing track of their family member in the late 1980s. And then the remains were ultimately identified as Michael Benjamin Davis from South Carolina, who was last seen 35 years ago. He was born in Richland County, South Carolina in 1965, and he would have been in his mid-20s at the time of his death. And they ended up locating one of his cousins, who said the discovery has given her and the rest of the family closure for Michael.
I mean, I do kind of have a question.
Yeah.
I mean, this is years later, so kind of hard, but they, like, finding how he ended up there, like, what, like, how did he, like, die? Like, obviously someone probably buried him there, but I get it was, like, this is, like, decades later, so
Yeah.
So he
finding that
wasn't-
information.
Yeah, he wasn't buried. They found his remains, I'm assuming above ground, because children stumbled across them. There wasn't much details on his cause of death or how he ended up in Indiana from South Carolina. But, yes.
I mean, sadly, it's probably how it's gonna be. I mean, 35 years later, I mean,
Yeah, it's hard to
If he
tell
went
what he was
missing-
doing there.
When he was 35 and the remains were found 31 years ago, how did nobody find his remains
He-
beforehand if they were in a field?
No, he was in his mid-20s at the time of his death, but his remains were found 31 years ago in 1993. So his remains were found, they just couldn't identify him until here recently. And it was with the help of DNA testing and genealogy. They somehow were able to take his DNA and track down a relative.
Yeah.
And yeah,
But that 4-year time span from when he went missing to the point he was, like, the remains were found. I just want to know what was actually happening. Like,
it doesn't really specify how long it took from his death to the finding of his remains, but it was in a field, so I'd assume that his remains were found relatively quickly because farmers are very diligent with their fields.
Yeah.
They're always looking out for things that are in them, but a farmer didn't find them, children did when they were playing. But yeah, it doesn't specify how old he was whenever he died. It does say he was under 30 years old and in his mid-20s. That's just a presumption. So not even his family knows how old he was. They just lost track of him.
and it's sad, but at least family
Yeah.
got some closure with finding his remains and identifying him and all that. But I mean, if you guys have nothing more to say on that, I think we, like I said, cause of death and all that's kind of iffy. I mean, at this point.
It just takes so long for people to be identified because DNA testing costs so much, and it's just hard to do that with every unidentified body that they come across because there is a lot more than you think.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that these two families got closure for their missing people being identified. But yeah, we can move on to the next topic if you want.
Yes. So this one is also when I found about, I was kind of shocked. But Indiana's upcoming execution, and it's the first one happening in 15 years, I believe, and it's over Joseph Corcoran's case, I believe I said his last name correctly, but this man, 49, from Allen County, so that's like by Fort Wayne, he was convicted in 1999 for killing 4 people, and those victims include his brother. I mean, okay, his Robert Scott Turner, his sister's fiance, two of their friends, one named Timothy Bricker and Douglas Stillwell. And from what court documents from when he was obviously tried and all that, it said he became enraged when he was kind of talking to these 4, what kind of led to him killing them. But, I mean, this whole situation is just kind of was weird. And one kind of challenge, especially looking back in the documents of the court, was there was arguments against his execution due to like mental illness, which is something more prevalent that we're seeing. And like, do you guys have like any questions so far on this? I mean, it's one of those cases where
It's so straightforward. Like, he did it. We know what happened. So it's just kind of mind blowing that you can kill your own brother and sister's fiance.
I wonder why they're claiming mental illness now and not
Yeah.
whenever he committed the murders. Like, it's only a problem now whenever he's set to be executed. Anything else on that topic? I don't have anything to add.
I mean, it's one of those things.
I'll say there's a date that is set, isn't there?
Yeah, it was December 18th, but
Yeah.
like I said, it's being paused, and I have no doubt that it will probably be pushed back. It's one of these things, this kind of a straightforward, might happen, might not, depends on the legal.
But I do think they will probably push it back as far as they can.
Oh,
and just
no,
keep
no doubt, no
dragging
doubt,
it out.
no doubt.
So
Yeah.
if you want to know more about this, you can research that yourself. I'm
Mhm.
sure it's going to be ongoing for, I'd say a year at least, years possibly.
Yeah.
But
So, but other than that, that's pretty much it for that. I mean, well, we believe we have the drought conditions coming up.
Yeah, so the severity of the 2024 summer heat has really affected the drought and the rain conditions. So it's one of the most hottest summers recorded, and it ends in just a few short days. But the evaporation and reduced water levels are due from the higher temperatures, and a resident said as temperatures go up, evaporation increases, leading to a reduced soil moisture and lower water levels in lakes, rivers, and reservoirs. This amplifies the period of a low precipitation and not only impacts the agricultural but also stresses the water supply for industrial and residential uses. So obviously Indiana, we're known for farming, and that's just really it's not a good place to be in right now, especially with harvest and everything going on. But the impacts are the agricultural sector, effects on the crop failures and livestock, the agricultural sector the most, leading to failing crops, suffering livestock, and due to a lack of water, food to graze on. Recreational activities for fishing, boating, hiking, and then wildfires, of course, with the high temperatures, dry conditions. That's going to increase the risk, so that is really just a bad place to be in right now. Population displacement. The current drought statistics, in the first half of 2024, a quarter of the U.S. population was living in an abnormally dry condition, and specifically about 25.5 of the population, 3.4 to 11.4 million people were severed the drought or worse. 3.1 million dealt with extreme drought or worse. Around 25,000 dealt with exceptional drought.
I do kind of have a question. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I can feel it too. Just the summer
Yeah.
has been quite hot,
Yeah.
but I do like. I don't know if it's just because they're talking just how hot this one, or is this drought comparable to like a drought we had in the past
Yeah.
in Indiana? I don't really, be honest, I don't really pay attention to that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, this drought is pretty mild compared to the previous big drought. So 2000, 2004 in the western U.S., which impacted Arizona, Nevada, and Utah and California, and led to a major lakes like Lake Powell and Lake Mead receding 2010 to 2015 in the southern plains, mostly affecting Texas. Driest year in Texas history, agricultural loss exceeded $7.62 billion in just 2011 alone, and widespread wildfires and critical water supply issues. And then in 2012 to 2016 in California, a significant decline in the Sierra Nevada snowpack, and then 1/3 and 1/2 of CF's water supply. Wildflowers and water restrictions and environmental consequences were a result in this drought. So, do you have any questions about that?
No, with come with drought, you can't really do too much about it. It's just
Yeah.
kind of nature's thing. From how you said, though, this ain't the worst drought that we experienced in recent years, which is good. It is a little more warmer and dry than it usually is, but overall, I don't really got much to say. Just
Yeah.
hopefully this, come fall, well, it's already fall, but as we get later into the year, hopefully conditions starts getting a little better, which I imagine they would.
Yeah. So I think that
we did
should
just have a rain too.
Yeah, we did.
Just
So that
the
was
other day.
good. I think that should wrap up that segment, and we should go on to the YMCA, Madison.
Yeah, getting into our hometown. So I don't know if many of you guys, well, if you're listening from Vincennes, I don't know if you knew this, but the YMCA is being revitalized after 25 years. 25 years without an upgrade. So, they have not done anything for 25 years. The goal is to complete the project within 10 months. So some of the things that they're going to be doing new paint, new ceiling, lighting, hardwood floors, handicap accessible bathrooms, and new party/gathering room. The first phase will focus on early childhood development area, and then they are also going to be doing a 24-hour access to weight and cardio areas. This will benefit local residents. If you like going to the YMCA, you're going to be able to go 24 hours now. It's going to have more accessibility for people with disabilities. And overall, just a revitalization, just the new paint, ceiling, lighting, everything. They're just going to really up it up a little bit. And yeah, hopefully it'll help with the community engagement at the YMCA. More people will be inclined to go. So if you didn't know, now you know, and maybe you would want to go check out the new YMCA that they're upgrading. But that is all I have on that. Any questions? There's not much to it.
No, it's just exciting to have that kind of a new feeling to the YMCA. So.
I didn't know they had a YMCA. And then since I'll be 100 with you, I'll be 100.
No, I didn't know either. But now it's
if
exciting.
you didn't know we had a YMCA, it is. What street is that? It's off of 6th Street, I believe. It is close to, there's a dealership by Walmart. If you go the opposite way, if you go right, there's this little tiny road that curves around, and right in this little cul-de-sac is our YMCA. So, you have Google Maps. I am not good with directions, so don't quote me on the directions I just gave you. But, yeah, we do have a YMCA, and now it's going to be better than ever, so now's the time to check it out. Give them 10 months, though. It's going to take 10 months, so maybe in 10 months.
Have they said that, will they be closing the whole thing down, closing sections of it as they work, or will it stay open?
I think they're going to be closing sections of it.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. They haven't really released a lot of information about it, but I'm assuming the new paint, ceiling, lighting, obviously you're going to have to shut things down for the ceiling, and they're also adding a room. They might just convert an already made room into that, but I'm not sure if they're closing down completely. I'd assume not, because they still want to make money to
of course.
fund those revitalizations. But yeah, now you know. We have a YMCA, guys.
Perfect.
If you have anything else to share over the YMCA,
No.
you said it's pretty straightforward. I didn't know there was a YMCA. I know now, so
Yeah.
learn something from that.
That's all on that, yeah.
All right. Well.
Hey, you got anything else, Ansley?
No, I think I'm good.
Madison?
No. We can recap on what we talked about.
Yeah.
So we talked about the
Kolkata
murders,
murders.
the
Yes.
2 long unidentified bodies, the execution,
First execution in
The
15
drought.
years.
Yeah, Indiana drought.
and then the YMCA, of course, that we just
Yeah.
talked about.
All right,
That I
well,
have.
that kind of wraps up this week's episode. I haven't heard too much on our next episode. What is it?
O.J. Simpson trial.
That's gonna be something. But
Oh yeah.
stay tuned for that
Controversial.
one.
Mhm.
But please join us next week when we bring that episode out for you guys. And anything else?
Yeah. Thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys.
Yeah.